You don't have it. You wish you had it. I have it.
Welcome to the edge of nowhere. Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this 48th episode of the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with my co-host and the Rocky to my Bullwinkle, Matt Ozero, a.k.a. the Moz. How we doing today, Moz?
Well, we just found out Rocky's a ball and a Filipino tree monster.
We just learned the nature of those beasts in the part one of this two-parter, so I figured it was the right time to finally use that little duo.
We haven't used that one yet, though?
We have not.
Wow. Okay, then.
I actually made a list, so I can keep track of what we used.
Check it twice and find out who's Rocky.
I'm going to do my damnedest to never repeat myself.
Well, I can't say that much, because that's all I kind of do here.
Yeah. Mm. Well, I mean, just in that one situation.
Yeah. Okay.
But
fair enough.
And at some point, I'm just going to put that whole list out somewhere, and everybody can see all the things you are to my things. Mm-hmm. You're all the things to all my things is really what it is, Moz.
Yeah.
So that list is going to be endless.
Yep.
I'm not sure what any of that meant. All right. Before I hand it over to you, Moz, I'm going to ask everybody to real quickly just hit those happy little fun buttons on whatever platform you're listening on. Like and subscribe, maybe share with some friends. And I do have a little bit of old business, Moz. Do you have any old business?
Nope.
Okay. I got a couple points here. So one thing, in part one of this two-parter, in the previous episode, we were talking about the movie with the knight and the dragon, like teaming up.
Yeah, Sean Connery was the voice of the dragon.
Yeah, and it was Dennis Quaid was the knight.
Dennis Quaid. Okay,
it was called Dragonheart.
Dragonheart.
And I'm surprised I couldn't remember it because I really like that movie. I even saw it in the theater. I remember seeing it in the theater.
Oh, yeah. It was this ploy between the two of them. Yeah, I remembered the movie, didn't remember the movie.
Yeah.
So we failed in the moment.
It's actually really good. It's got a good ending.
Yeah.
It's got a good ending. One other thing for old business. I have an update on the old business from the previous episode. See, I'm carrying through on the two-parter thing here for you, Moz. But I started my homework on the Cryptoid Palooza fuzzy word research. Mm-hmm. We're going to see if there's a code, maybe. I went back and found the actual original rough recording. So it hadn't been touched by my editing yet. And that's a tip to anyone who's out there starting their own podcast or some kind of audio production of any kind. Always save your rough recordings. When you go to edit, save a new file. Always save that rough recording. It can come in handy later, as in this case. But I started listening, and we always do some like pre-episode chatter on the mic before we really start the episode. In the first 6 minutes and 45 seconds of the recording is totally clean, pristine audio. No fuzzy wuzzies whatsoever. Then right at 6:45, I say, it's going to be a weird one. We ready? To which you quickly reply, yes. And the very next word is the first one that fuzzes.
Wow. Nice.
Right when I was like, we ready to record this episode?
Nice.
Something went boom.
The ghost in the machine is, we'll have to track that.
It's weird. So I'm totally going to comb that. I didn't have time before this in between, but I'm going to go through that whole recording at some point before season 2 and figure out if maybe there might be some kind of code in the words, or I'll check the timestamps and I'll do whatever beautiful mind kind of filtering of it that I can think of and see if anything pops out.
Alrighty.
But okay, that's it for me on the old business, Moz. You ready to take this over?
I am. there is a prerequisite. This is kind of a part 2. You should consider heading back to episode, what was it, 46?
47. This is 48, so 47.
The Anito, the Pujo, and the Aswang Maria, Filipino Folklore Part 1. But if you're here and you just want a Mananggal tonight, he's okay. He's good. Stick around, Mananggal's like the Macarena with prenatal cannibalistic vampirism.
I'm sorry, I should say one more thing before we go, Moss. We're in the garage today in Flagstaff. There are massive thunderstorms going on, so you might hear like thunder and sirens and stuff in the background. It's kind of like biblical floods going on in Flagstaff today. So I apologize for any background noise. We're going to just work through it. Sorry, go ahead, Moss.
Tonight's beastie is particularly nasty, so this is one of for the Monster Lord Tour All-Stars. So Lola, gather the children because the sun is setting. Here's the star of last week's EP, Dr. Maximus Ramos. I started with him last time for an atmosphere quote. Going to go back to him. When darkness is heaviest, he felt an oppressive presence hovering over him and a sudden prick at the base of his throat. With a loud cry, he plunged a sharp-pointed knife into the bulk that he felt above him. There was a screech of pain and a flapping of enormous wings.
Spooky.
Maximus Ramos.
Is that a vampire?
We'll get there. You'll see. Well, they're all, like I said, they're all similar. Last week we reviewed 2 Ramos classics, Creatures of Philippine Lower Mythologies, where that quote came from, and his Aswang complex. But tonight, using some of those same sources, we flap toward a truly sinister creature from your worst nightmares, the Mananggal, arguably the most heinous Aswang of them all. Then we're heading into some theory about what it might all mean, tying Filipino folklore into a nice bow. Then we got our segments. And then, we'll wrap up.
All right.
So ready your knife and sharpen those bolos, because we're heading into the darkest chapter of this darkest of archipelagos.
Spooky.
I know, isn't it? We're still hanging around the Philippines for this episode and surrounding areas until somebody brings us a Mai Tai.
Mai Tai's rum, right? I could go for a rum drink.
Yep. And some muddled basil and stuff. But
oh, yeah, let's do that.
Mint. I forget. Actually, I forget.
We got to find the right bar after we record today.
Yeah, there's some green shit in it. That's all I know. But as we mentioned last time, one area of the Philippines seems to be Aswang Central, Capiz, its capital. The city of Roxas lies at the heart of Aswang legend. Again, by some accounts, all of the inhabitants are Aswang. Yikes.
All the inhabitants?
So Jeremy's going to head into town while I stay safely in the chopper.
I'm going to that party.
Actually,
a whole town, like our village full of like witches, basically?
Actually, keep in mind, these areas are trying to shake off the stigma. If you recall, there's the colonizers kind of pointed at that area because that's where some of the women shaman were. There's also a Scully Muggle thing we're going to get to in the segments as to why that area might be. So it's just a medical thing, too. So there's a lot going on, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. But fear not, there's actually real monsters here. So fear not fear.
It's funny how who gives the title has a lot to do with what the title ends up meaning.
Yeah, it's like the victor or the historians, they write the history. Same idea.
It's like if the locals give them that title, then the colonizers are afraid of them. But if the colonizers give them that title, then the locals are afraid of them.
Yeah, good.
Isn't that? You see that?
I see what you did there.
Humans are weird.
Yeah, and so are we. Dr. Ramos covers one story wherein the government allegedly sent 7 police officers into Capiz to investigate this claim of rampant Aswangery, which could lead to dancing, by the way. You can really look that up.
Aswangery.
Rampant. You have to say rampant.
Rampant Aswangery.
It's kind of alone if you just say Aswangery. I think rampant Aswangery is implied.
I'm going to figure out what that means and then be guilty of it.
Yeah. That's why we're not going downtown tonight. They spent the first night in the mayor's manor, all these police officers, and all seemed well at first. But at midnight, there's that beat of membranous wings, and they discover the mayor himself is a Mananggal. They reported their findings to the powers that be, which were then filed under X, wheeled into the warehouse by Smoking Man at the end of that Indiana Jones movie. That's from Maximus Ramos. Makes me want to smoke a Morley.
The mayor was a monster. Imagine that.
Yeah. It's not much of a stretch, is it?
No. It's all making total sense to me so far.
Find the governor. This is the legend of the area. Whether it's true or not, I would say this. It made it to Ramos's work, and he's kind of the authority. He did his work kind of at 1990s, early 90s is when a lot of his work came out. But again, to the Bickle, the term Aswang is associated with the witchcraft and sorcery, probably much the same throughout this island chain. Again, Aswang may also come from Asu-Asawan, likeness of a dog. That's from the Aswang complex as well.
That's what that translates to? Likeness of a dog?
We talked about that last week. So it was Aswang or Asa-Asawan, likeness of a dog, and then there's also the shamanic component to it.
Right, okay.
And if you recall this from our Shapeshifter episode, I had a Roscoe Webera, as found in Daniel Britton's work, the description of the old Nawal. I keep coming back to this. An old Indian with red eyes who knows how to turn himself into a dog, woolly, black, and ugly. And that'll be in the show notes.
Woolly, black, and ugly.
It's just like a basic... I'm probably just channeling Brad Steiger, but it seems like the proto-shapeshifter is the wolf or the dog.
I feel like there's been a number of times throughout season 1 where we've heard those same words in that same order.
Yes. Well, that's the same quote. I used the Graham Hancock, if you scratch deep enough, you find shamans, and I quote that one because it just keeps coming back up.
Yeah.
It digs its way up, and then Buffy stabs it with a spear. Yeah.
Good for her. Good for her.
We need, the Philippines could use a couple of Buffys, is what it seems like. Yeah. The word Mananggal comes from the root Tagalog word Tanggal, Tanggal, which means to sever, and the word Manananggal is one who severs. Similarly, Penanggal of Malaysia, a nearby adjacent critter, the word Penanggal means to detach, which is the inspiration of that King Missile song in the 90s.
Oh, detachable.
Yeah, same idea. But now pay attention, Jeremy. For the Tagalog group of the Philippines, the word skin is balat. For the Aklanon group, the word malakat means walker. So when I say skin,
walker,
in Filipino, it's balat.
Malakat.
Wow. I didn't think you were going to get that. I had a joke for when you didn't get it.
I'll forget it in 30 seconds.
Man. You totally botched that by not botching that.
Use it on me surprisingly in 30 seconds. I won't. It's because you just said it and I made sure to remember it.
Good job.
Wait, Malakat?
Yes.
Oh, now I'm going to remember.
I wouldn't even get it, so you did good. But last time we discussed a couple of classes and this was back to the breakdown where Ramos was trying to put these things into buckets, and we had the higher mythologies, which the Anido spirits or ancestrals, and they had the bound and unbound. Remember that quiz you failed? Yeah,
that one where I was wrong no matter what I said.
Yeah, that one was fixed. It was fixed. But Ramos's higher mythologies are these ghost deities, ancestral spirits, as well as three main classes of Aswang. If you get to the lower mythologies, walking Aswang, flying Aswang, or more psychic vampire type Aswang. This is just a kind of recap. But then Ramos breaks these down further into those 12 categories of lower mythologies. Demons, dragons, dwarves, elves, ghouls, giants, merfolk, ogres, vampires, visceral suckers, witches, werewolves, thugs, mugs.
And Methodists.
Which are
Sorry, nothing against the Methodists. We just love Mel Brooks too much.
Yeah, it's true. And werewolves, which are really were-dogs. The Aswang are kind of most of those or 7 of those 12 categories you'll find Aswang. So how do you even put these into buckets?
Yeah, it's just they're just monsters,
Well, I almost feel like because he tried to do a thing we tried to break it down by saying like ogre type, but then he had like he had Buso but ogre type, and he kind of reclassified this sounds like another bucket, so he puts ghoulish but vampire class
Right.
He ends up, but I think it would have been better just as a spectrum because all these things at the end of the category seem to relate to the next bucket. Well, and if you put it more of a spectrum-y disorder.
Spectrum. Yeah, that takes me back to the thing I always come back to, vibration. It's the frequency.
Yeah.
Their frequency, it is a spectrum.
Yeah. And
if you want to, put it out as a categorization of the different classes, it would have to be much more of a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Than just separate categories. They're going to overlap everywhere.
Specters of consciousness, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's more Venn diagrammy, I guess, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could do a Venn diagram.
It would at least be closer.
Correct.
It would be better.
Yeah.
Than just buckets.
Yeah. I'm in agreement. But tonight's creature, to bring it back to where it gets classified, is the Manananggal, a flying Aswang viscera sucker class with self-segmenting capabilities. And I chose this spotlight critter for a couple reasons.
Because it's really creepy and gross?
Well, none of them are good, but I said it for a couple of reasons. Before we get into this creature, there's a weird archaeological correlation. I came across the Mananggal burial jar. Are these artifacts that go back to Neolithic times. They're believed to be magical in nature, and they sound kind of like gin jars a little bit. Slightly different spelling, Mananggal with a U, so it's just a U instead of an A. Tonight's monster is spelled, one letter different.
So they're like Neolithic urns, basically?
Yeah.
Wow.
But these jars have 3 faces carved on them, each face depicting the soul, the life force, and a depiction of a ferryman. So what I went back to immediately is 2 episodes ago when we did the Were-Croc flashback, when we did the Bebe of West Bend in Africa. They had the same thing. They had the soul, the Metatekama, the life force, the Kabotica, and they had a depiction of actual crocodiles as ferrymen that came up last week as well. So we had all those themes and all those elements in a different part of the world again.
You got to let the crocodile take you across the river. That's a little unnerving.
Scary. It's unnerving. Yeah, that's a little worse than Charon, I would imagine.
Yeah,
but we're here.
It was Charon.
Yeah, it is Charon.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
And the river Styx.
Yep, very good. I always loathe that one. It's the river of forgetfulness. Sorry.
Yeah.
But we're here tonight to Babylon, not Bebe Libe.
Bebe Libe.
But I'm wondering, is the Mananggal jar the crossing to the upper world, and that's the Ishtadiva, and the Mananggal, the Batwoman creatures, the Ishtaraksha, the portal guardian. We don't want to get into that. It's part of my Maz monster theory that we're working on, but still being worked on in the laboratory.
Yeah, you didn't realize how long of a road it was to get to those episodes when you first thought of them.
Yeah,
I wrote do all the other stuff.
I wrote
first.
that title of an episode like at the beginning, and I'm not anywhere near my Portal Guardian episode.
Over a year ago, and it's still, and we've mapped out most of season 2, and it's still not even on the list.
Still in the laboratory. Throw the 3rd switch, Jeremy.
Not the 3rd switch.
Yeah. Or you can say master instead of master. Ooh.
Yes, monster.
Yes, master. Maybe that'll work. Well,
yes,
anyway.
monster.
But moving along. The Mananggal are said to be beautiful women by day, long hair, light complexion, usually older. But by night, she is said to separate from her lower body, which she then hides, sprouts wings, typically bat-like, and then feeds by sliding her long thread-like tongue through any opening in the dwelling and then any opening in the victim. So it hovers outside the dwelling. This is the content warning again tonight.
Is this like when my dog licks me in my nostril?
Yeah, same idea. Same idea. In the nose. Your dog is a canine. It's a dog Aswang. Yep, it's definitely usually of a pregnant woman or a child are the targets. Uses a thread-like tongue to find any crack in the wall and then goes for the gooey bits. Its favorite foods are, well, anything goes: sputum of the sick, fetus of the pregnant, or the other nasty viscera. Thus the term viscera sucker. I just read today, Stephen Asma's On Monster book. He puts all these categories of like sputum and globs and gooiness into this other category, like in between. And that's why alien's always dripping and the blob's always gelatinous. And it's because some of this is that us or not us? It's still part of us, but it's not. And the shaman always very sputum oriented as well. Again, the monster, like the shaman, use the same stuff, the breath, the snot.
I don't like the word sputum.
Yeah.
And my smoothie looks far less appetizing now.
We're looking at your smoothie right now. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, think about what you just said now. Look at my smoothie.
Sorry.
It was so tasty.
Yeah. Well, I'll have it.
At least I got through most of it. There's not much left.
There you go. But the Aswang in general also have a variation of the skin.
Malakat.
Yeah, very good. Attack thing going on, sickening from above. We talked about that a little last week. There's definitely some overlap. But in Wiki, I found a description of this creature from Friar Juan de Plasencia, who recounts several Tagalog monsters. The Mananggal was monster number 7, if you would read the magnificent 7th.
Okay. The 7th was called Manananggal, and his purpose was to show himself at night to many persons, without his head or entrails. In such guise, the devil walked about and carried, or pretended to carry, his head to different places, and in the morning returned it to his body, remaining, as before, alive. This seems to me to be a fable, although the natives affirm that they have seen it, because the devil probably caused them so to believe. This occurred in Catanduanes.
And that just from Wiki, got to start off light. But the friar refers to this thing as a male, although they're usually women. There are some accounts of males. The etymology, by the way, Mananggal. Sorry, it's better than my gargoyles joke. But remember, the Mayor Capiz was a male. So even though 9 out of 10 stories of the Mananggal are female, there are male versions that show up.
Well, yeah, and when you're talking about a friar, he's definitely part of a sort of patriarchal system, and they tend to categorize
everything as men.
Anything strong as male.
Yeah.
Anything beautiful as female.
Well, they were attacking. There's definitely a lot of that. We're going to get to some of those theories as well. Sexuality does play into some of this, of course. The Mananggal, like a lot of other viscera suckers, would often live in homes. Family members may or may not know the true identity of the family fiend within. Usually they do not. But these creatures like a home base to park the old caboose while the mouth flies out to feast. They usually target people from nearby villages as not to bring suspicion back to their doorstep. It's definitely a correlation with the moon or the Manananggal, because Aswang are said to be more active at moonrise and moonset, similar to other Aswang.
The moon's really weird. Hollow Moon episode 30?
Yeah, the moon even has something to do with Aswang, or werewolves, same idea.
Yeah, it's connected to so many things in this realm.
And the ritual itself, by the way, to voluntarily become an Aswang involves staring at the moon unblinkingly throughout this process, throughout this ritual. So kids, bring saline when you're trying to transition to a cannibalistic viscera sucker. You don't want dry eye.
Because the red eyes make people think that you're one of them.
They'll give it away. Yeah, take a shower.
The monster has red eyes.
And they're smelly, so take a shower, use Visine, kids.
Keep yourself clean and presentable there, children.
For other Aswang, rampant Aswangery tips,
avoid the rampant Aswangery. I really want to commit some rampant Aswangery. I'm going to have to define that later.
There you go.
And then do it.
I believe I already did. But anyway, it could lead to dancing, I also warned. But we have some origin myths for the Mananggal. There's a Balinese one to start us off for your second reading. This from Legends and Mythologies of Southeast Asia. That will fascinate you. Traveloka.com. It will be in the show notes.
Rangda, the demon queen of Leya, is said to have eternally waged war against the male embodiment of positive forces, the playful Barong. Rangda's story is also linked to the legend of Kalan Arang, the legendary widow witch who damaged crops and brought diseases in ancient Java in the late 10th century. She had a daughter named Ratna Mangali, who, though beautiful, was not able to get married because people feared her mother. This angered Kalan Arang, and she proceeded to kidnap a young girl. She sacrificed the girl at the Temple of Death to the goddess Durga, and soon after a flood engulfed the village, killing many. ... Another interpretation claims that Rangda was actually Queen Mahendradatta, the mother of King Erlanga, and wife to King Udayana. Because she was allegedly practicing witchcraft and black magic, she was condemned and exiled by her husband. Out of hurt and humiliation, she sought revenge upon her ex-husband's court and his kingdom. She summoned all the evil spirits from the jungle to bring death and destruction everywhere.
That will be in the show notes. So
Can I just say that?
Yeah.
I know she's supposed to be the bad guy there, but I feel like I'm on her side.
Yeah, and that's the way monsters often happen. Like Joker.
She's very anti-hero. Yeah, she's the anti-hero. She's not the villain. She's the anti-hero.
But the reason I bring it up is because the daughter in one version is the bad guy, and that's Ratna Mangali, Manggali, some similar etymology going there. And again, it was a woman that, it's banished and then comes back for revenge, and it becomes, all behind all the rampant Aswangery.
Or you could say she became detached and then grew ugly.
Yeah, there you go. Very good. We'll get that in the theory. You're jumping ahead to theory, so we don't. That could lead to dancing as well.
I'm just teasing the theory. I'm teasing it.
And by the way, the Leyak have no relation to the Sleestacks from the Land of the Lost. By the way, Jeremy, I checked, which is important.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's good to know.
Good to know.
Yep. But as usual, we talked about this a lot. Buckets get murky. Ramos does flavor these things, and he tries to do the best he can. And I've had similar problems, so I don't want to judge when you're trying to put things into a shapeshifter bucket. But let's discuss other viscera suckers from this kind of grouping. The Mananggal adjacent critters, as it were, around Southeast Asia. We're going to kind of spiral out from the Philippines, and kind of spread out further into the archipelago toward similar global occurrences and themes. And we're going to get on the trail of this thing, and it's going to take us places I did not think it was going to take us at the beginning. So I'm very excited.
And
about
none
it.
of us really want to go.
That's a great plug. Have we come up with that new T-shirt idea? I think we just did. Monster Lore Tour.
You don't want to go.
You don't want to go there. It's like, nope.
It's scary down there, man.
Nope.
I'm just saying it's really scary in there, and I'm not sure we want to go.
I did something different for this little global one, and like I said, this is going to take us on a train to kind of find a new version of this closer to home, actually. So it gets a little spookier than you'd even want.
Oh, no.
But I threw in an ahu guano for you, so one of these is made up, and you have to call ahu guano when we get to it.
Okay.
Wiki did a good job on some of these, which they describe as a constellation of similar folklore across Southeast Asia. So the Mananggal kind of has different sisters and brothers kind of all over this area. Basically, and I told you this already, Jeremy, I do my own research, and then I use Wiki as a double check. Usually I miss a couple on that page, but I usually find one or two they don't, and tonight is no exception. Very exciting. But do your own research, kids, because that's where the magic happens. Sometimes in floating head, excrement-sucking form.
And know the difference between information and commentary.
Yes.
That's very important when doing research.
I agree. What is the... No.
Yeah.
There's a variation of the Mananggal or flying Aswang or Aswang na Leog called the Manananggal, again with the same root word detached or severed in it, which only flies around as a head with the internal organs trailing along. This is a common sub-theme. Ramos mentions a male version of the flying viscera sucker called the Equi, E-Q-U-I, which also leaves half its body but prefers to dine only on the livers of men, which is very Lecter-like. Fava beans sold separately. But I was wondering if, I don't know if I should go there, but livers of men seem like it would be beer marinated. I'm wondering if that's...
Oh, yeah, I'd go straight for the liver.
There you go.
Yeah, totally.
There you go. There's the Abat and the Awak kind of similarly, only that, they fly with their hands, so they're half a body, but they kind of flap with their hands, which seems hands down pretty comical, I have to say. It's like that Hobot. We have umbrella ones. We have strange.
And do these guys trail all their entrails along with them as well?
Well, it's still half the body because they got the hand and the heads,
Yeah.
I guess. They're not just the head.
Well, it's just head and shoulders and arms.
Yes, that's what it sounds
So
like.
you can bring the whole torso.
Yeah.
You can bring just the arms, shoulders, head. You can bring just the head.
Right.
But regardless, you need to have all your guts hanging out below you while you fly around.
That seems to be pretty common to the flying Aswang, actually. It's
kind of their calling card as far as I can tell.
Yeah, which will drip on your calling card.
To me, that's what defines the Aswang bucket.
Yeah.
Is the flying ones just have their guts hanging out.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other thing that does that.
So bring a bucket because you're going to need it because it drips, But,
gross.
But in this next creature fits into a fourth classification called, this is a cool one, the stumbling Aswang or Mananggal, which hangs out only in bars, uses its long proboscis-like tongue to sip other people's drinks, which admittedly was what I would do if I had this anatomical feature.
Good trick.
There you go.
If you buy me a beer, I'll tell you which one's fake.
You're calling ahu guano on me?
That last one's the ahu guano.
Yes, it is. But this from Britannica, moving on.
But you can still buy me a beer if you want. You can still buy me a beer.
That's true.
Because you're going to drink it with your long tongue. I assume you're one of these Aswang, right, Moss? It sounds so much like you.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I had those superpowers. This from Britannica, and it brings us to our third reading, Jeremy, the Langsuir, Langsuir.
Created from the spirits of women who died in childbirth, the Malaysian Langsuir is not someone you want to meet in the middle of the night. With her floor-length hair concealing a hole in the back of her neck, long talons, an ability to fly, she makes for a menacing sight as she steals fish from fishermen's nets. It doesn't end there, though. She is also a shapeshifter, and her real goal is draining the blood of an unguarded infant. But take comfort, this vampiric demon can be stopped if her hair and talons are removed, and inserted into the hole in her neck.
That from 8 Mythological Monsters, Britannica again.
Do you know how much fighting you have to do with a monster to remove all that stuff
you
and shove
just
it in the back of their neck?
Declaw it. It'll be fine. You know, that's what you do when you get a new pet anyway, right? Okay, that's cruel.
No.
You don't get it declawed.
Don't
That's a
ever
good point.
declaw an animal.
Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that, kids, especially in the Philippines. Actually,
I'm sorry, unless it's moss.
I should be declawed. That should be declawed. Yeah, so there you go. There you have it. I think it's kind of got some of the same themes where it's draining, it's going for infants as a target. There's definitely some similarities. As we get spiraling in outwards, we're going to get closer to our quarry as well.
Yeah.
Within a reference from Dr. Ramos's Aswang complex, I found a viscera sucker, the Srei Ap, Sreiap, that also feeds on excrement. Another version of just the head and the alimentary canal flitting about. So this is just the head with the alimentary canal. And that, that concludes tonight's episode.
That was gross.
Yeah, that was very rampant Aswangery. Another one is also
Rampant
called
Aswangery.
Another one is also called the Ap AHP, which is still Cambodia with an H tucked into the name. There's a Srei Ap, maybe. I don't know if that's related. SREIAHP, but they sound like they're the same thing. Not sure. Krasu, KRASU in Thailand is another flying head and entrails dealio. But the only difference is they do stress her beauty even in disembodied head form.
Dude, I don't care how pretty a face you have.
Yeah,
if your head
neither,
has nothing below it but a bunch of guts, you're not beautiful. I'm sorry.
Well, they say they're usually beautiful by day, hideous by night.
Because where is beauty, Maz? It's on the inside.
Yeah,
And
it's in the eye of the beholder.
And if you have no outside, there is no inside.
Yeah, but if it is the eye of the beholder, and she does have eyes, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, she might actually do well with a beholder.
Yeah, exactly.
Just flying heads.
And you can find her on Tinder and other dating apps, AHBS.
Yeah, I bet you can. I bet you can.
But anyway, there's also the from the Tay Nguyen region of Vietnam, and I know I'm butchering that, comes the Malay, Malai, with the same head-only version, also a fan of excrement. But this has more of the hungry ghost feel to it, or Wendigo, because no matter how much nastiness this thing slurps up, gradually dies of starvation, kind of that hungry ghost theme we find.
These guys are like the cryptid version of the bottom feeder.
Yeah.
Like they're the bottom suckers, you know?
Yes. It's definitely one of the nastier and creepier
I just
things
realized
out there.
what I said there. I'm sorry.
Bottom feeder?
No pun intended.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
It is a bottom feeder.
It is
Well
definitely
done,
a bottom
Jeremy.
feeder.
And the Germans have a similar deal, by the way, with Der fliegende Scheißkopf,
Whoa.
or flying shithead, which shows up at the end of the night at beer halls. It slurps up spilled beer after festivals.
Oh, I know that guy.
I will admit there is a second imposter in this side trail, and I'll explain in the side trail why there's two, Jeremy, because there is a reason, and we will get to it.
You're going to have to teach me that German.
Der fliegende Scheißkopf.
Fliegende Scheißkopf.
The aforementioned Mananggal in Malaysia, southeastern Asia, is another similar thing. A disembodied woman's head, the Kraso and Equalike with Krasue, or that one that was IQI. But when people spot this thing, it seems to twinkle in the darkness like another witch light or kind of ghost orb effect going on. This is why it's referred to as a Mananggal constellation, I guess. They seem to have island hopped, apparently. They can fly and maybe cause some twinkling like star effects.
Interesting.
Blazing entrails.
Oh,
Sing it with me. She rode a blazing entrail. The Japanese actually have a yokai that mimics this. Rokurokubi can stretch its neck like Plastic Man, but another type of this creature can totally detach its head from the neck, called Nukubi. Nukekubi. Fun fact, the all-flying Aswang only eat entrails.
so did they fly around trying to eat each other? Because they just got their guts hanging out, flying around in the air.
Well,
Are they can't like
nothing-
last episode? Everything was cannibalistic too. So do these things like eat each other's guts while they're flying
nothing
around.
I've come across says that they attack their own. That I've come across. It doesn't mean, and I did read a couple books on this, and obviously other resources. Did not come across that. But let's spiral further out from the more global monster roll call, a little further away from home here, or Mananggal who left home and to join the circus kind of thing. From Teresa Bane again comes the Chonchon, flying head or vampire. Jeremy to read number 4.
The Araucanian people of Chile have the belief in which, through a mere act of will, a person can become a Chonchon, growing wings out of their ears and flapping so hard the head tears free of the body and flies away. Some sources say this only happens after the person is deceased. The Mapuche Indians in the same area say the Chonchon is a bird with the head of a Kalku, a sorcerer. Its cry is said to sound like twee, twee, twee. Whether it is a flying head or a bird, it feeds on human blood and can shapeshift to look like a person with large ears. Sounds more sister than sorcerer
but
to
it's
me.
Yeah, and it's not hiding the fact that it can. What it's using to flap away is the ears. It's not really. It doesn't. It still looks like big-eared when it's a person, and that's because that's what's sprouting out of there to keep it kind of flying. Another variation of a theme.
I was seriously waiting for the Dumbo version of this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And there it is.
Yep. But that's South America.
And that's in Chile. Okay.
The Bird, the Witch, and the Self-Segmenting Wardrobe.
Weren't we in the Philippines for most of this?
Yeah, like I said, this is the ones who went out to join the circus. We're going to be flipping out further.
Oh, that's
now.
what you meant. Okay,
They're
gotcha.
leaving home a little bit.
We're going global scope now. Okay, I thought this was all going to just be in the Philippines. I didn't realize there were more versions of this throughout the world.
I didn't either, and some of them are in Wiki, some of them are not. We're gonna go on the trail now to see where this leads. Probably right to your garage door.
Taking the tour of the lore of this monster, huh?
Exactly.
It's funny how we do that.
This next one seems to be missed in Wiki, just an oversight, but Native Americans, particularly the Wyandot Iroquois, have the big head or giant head that seems to share a lot of characteristics with the South Asian counterpart. It's more like the My Lai of Vietnam than the Mananggal proper, so it's more of a hungry ghost with an insatiable appetite, another Wendigo thing going on. It's not described as a beautiful woman or even necessarily a woman, as it has terrible eyes and a mouthful of fangs. But it's not the top half either. It's just a giant head. But again, it seems pretty, adjacent to some of the stuff that we've been talking about, in my opinion. Then came the big hint to really take us on this kind of next part of the tour. In Kathleen Nadeau's study, I found a creature from Portugal that seems to fit the Mananggal bill, as it feeds on the blood of children, and it's human by day and more bird-like at night. It also applies oil to its body to self-segment, and it's called a bruxa. So that is in the show notes, that study, Dancing Around the Cauldron with Rangda. That was the clue, though. So through some of my own velming, I wondered what about Mexico, because bruxa reminds me of Bruja from Mexican folklore. And heck, Wiki already found some of these Mananggal-adjacent creatures in Chile and Portugal, as we just mentioned. Another place the Spanish mucked about. So I asked myself, Mananggal-like entities closer to home, just south of the border. What do you think? Don't.
Yeah.
An answer in self-segmenting form flew into a nearby window. Luckily, it was closed. So I got on the trail of Las Mananangales. I'm allowed to name it if I find it, right?
Manangales. Yeah, the Spanish version. It sounds right to me.
Here's another one that you won't find in Wikipedia, the Huasca Witch. And yeah, it's probably in Wiki, but not in relation to the Mananggal, but it should be.
Say Huasca?
The Huasteca. H-A-U-S-T-E-C-A. It is a town in Mexico. I would say Huasteca. Okay. That is probably close as I can get to it. I found it in the book of Mexican Sorcery, A Practical Guide to Brujeria de Rancho, a great book by Laura de Villa. Will be in the show notes. She mentions this witch, a black magic shape-shifting hag, which is also a great Santana song, by the way. But the Jugal is surprisingly...
She's a black magic woman.
Shapeshifter, boom, boom, boom. But the Jugal is surprisingly devoid of any help on this lead. But the author de Villa gives one important clue. She mentions a song about this witch by the trio Cantores del Alba, which I believe means the 3 bars I went looking for Jessica Alba. I don't know.
That's not what that means.
Because there were way more than 3 bars I went looking for. I'm just going to tell you. But that's the musician. But the song is called La Bruja de la Huasteca. I was able to find an English translation of the song, and Jeremy is going to read it for us now. Now, put your thinking cap on, because this was my only hint.
Oh, it's like a poem.
Yep.
Oh, how wonderful it is to fly at 2 in the morning, at 2 in the morning. Oh, how wonderful it is to fly, O woman. To fly and let yourself fall in the arms of a lady. Oh, how wonderful it is to fly at 2 in the morning, O woman. The witch grabs me, she takes me to her house. She turns me into a pot and into a pumpkin. The witch grabs me, she takes me to the little hill. Oh, you must tell me, tell me, tell me, how many little ones have you drank from? None, 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 I don't know, I just want to drink from you. Oh, I was frightened by a woman, where? In the middle of the salty sea, in the middle of the salty sea. Oh, I was frightened by a woman, oh woman. Why didn't I want to believe what others had told me? From above she was a woman, from below she was a fish. Oh woman. When I found my wife lying down, I pulled the covers. She says nothing. When I found my wife asleep, I pulled the covers and I ran out. Hide your happiness. Hide, Juana. There's a witch underneath the bed.
So she flies at night. Here's the similarities. And that will be in the show notes, by the way, as well. She's associated with drinking from little ones. The vampiric piece is there. Also preferring children as the victim. Seems like she detaches because underneath the bed seems to be this fish part, is what it alludes to.
That I almost broke my tone when from below she was a fish.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
Hey, well, again, merfolk. We got the spectrum going on.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
She hides her lower half under the bed, it seems, but in fish form. Another shape-shifting twist in an episode full of twists. First glance, this version seems to be more Diagon-esque, or maybe the lower fish part is a red herring, pardon the pun. Then I said holy mackerel. No, I'm not going to do
holy
fish.
mackerel.
But there's a Tagalog Mananggal story from Ramos' Aswang complex that covers this too. Here's the end of that Ramos saga about the Mananggal. This is from the Aswang complex, by the way. Then her body was slowly separated at the waist, and how fishy the smell. I saw that her upper body was circling inside her room. I ran in terror. The next day I told this to my uncle, and he let her go. The smell of her room was very fishy. So there's again that tie-in. And here's some of the other similarities. It gets crazier. This is a little bit of a stretch. We hone in on this. This was still just on the trail. But according to the author Davila, the death of several area babies were associated with this witch ritual, wherein she gained her powers. Again, this is in Mexico, yet similar themes emerged in Dr. Ramos' Aswang complex. Several stories of witches in Aswang, babies mysteriously, or women have miscarriages, which is attributed to the witch. It's pretty eerie.
They pulled them out with their little tongue through the cracks in the wall. This is why you need Maz's monster spackle.
Yeah. Exactly. But in that same book, Mexican Sorcery, A Practical Guide to Brujeria de Rancho, we find the slam dunk. Why? Because a self-segmenting flying Aswang would be great in the NBA. It's Larry Bird of Mananggal.
They could be a player and the ball all at the same time.
I didn't think of that. But you'll have trouble getting the membranous bat wings into the hoop.
Well, it could keep itself out of one hoop and only go into the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cheating. The Mongol's cheating.
They're evil monsters. Of course they eat babies. You think they're not going to cheat in basketball?
Of course they're cheating. But this even has more of an exact match coming, so don't panic. Davila claims the Huasteca witch, H-U-S-T-E-C-A, Huasteca, could transition to a beautiful woman by day, but was a shape-shifting monster by night. In the story, she recounts how the monster marries an unsuspecting fella. Again, typical Ramos Aswang complex lore. The family member in the dark, upon transforming into a hag, her legs were detachable. Now, this is the town of Mexico. Wow. Her legs were detachable, so she had to hide them at night when she went on her witchery way. This is near Casa de Bon, not that far over the border. And
wow.
Here we are.
You found it.
When the husband got wise and discovered the ruse while she was out and about, the husband burned the house down while the wife's lower half is still under the bed. Ugh. She returns in the morning to the carnage, no lower half to return to, so she, like her Filipino counterpart, was left there to die in anguish. So that's what we talked about last week. That's one way to kill these things.
Oh, so
Destroy the lower half.
if they don't reattach, they die?
That's last week. Yeah, if they don't reattach, they die in the morning. That's why we're going to get to best defense for the Mananggal at some point. But if they can't return, there's a problem. We may have skipped it because I put all the Mananggal stuff in this side, so we will get the best defense as well. But
that's good to know. So if there's a Mananggal terrorizing your village, wait till it separates, find its legs, and burn them. Yeah. And then it'll be dead by the next day, right?
Yes. But again, the story would fit snugly in Ramos's Aswang complex and would fit snugly under the bed as well. For this search, though, Jugal wasn't very helpful unless you want to buy oils that can help you detach from your lower body. Yeah, civilization's crumbling, kids. There's your Google circus. That you search Google, it's gonna sell you something. Oh, you're trying to sell Segmate from your own skin?
I'll sell you that oil.
Yeah, this will make, there's the Terra oil that makes big hands come out of your ears so you can flap away.
I'll put something in a bottle for you.
I found one depiction of this witch by Googling Awasteka witch, and an image popped up of a creepy witch surrounded by owls from artist Jorge is the first name, and Ochoa is his second name. This is more of a mishmash of Lechuza, a southwestern-themed Aswang. Coming soon in Owl Week, by the way. But so even though the song has a fish lower half, the artist's rendition is more bird or owl-like, but the Villa's account, the author has the actual human legs being left behind as the witch takes flight. So it's got all these variations in Mexico. All kinds of shapeshiftery, self-segmenting goodness, which you're going to leave one Yelp review. Shapeshiftery, self-segmenting goodness, I think. Chock full.
Rampant Aswangery.
And rampant Aswangery. But then I discovered that this is a sub-theme in Bruja lore. Here's a tale from Hidalgo, which is about 400 miles south of the Mexican town of Huasteca. We're on the trail now, Jeremy, just following the dripping entrails south. Can you cast those? I wonder if we can get Jeffrey Meldrum involved. Would you read this one from this town in Mexico?
Yes. It is said that in certain regions of the Mexican state of Hidalgo, it is prohibited to say the word bruja on Fridays, and many people still put salt on their rooftops, as well as place scissors in the shape of a cross below their beds. In the town of Huachapan, Hidalgo, many still tell stories and legends of shape-shifting brujas and of seeing the fireballs on the faraway hills. Newborns are especially protected here, as the brujas that shift into guajolotes, turkeys, spend the night looking for newborns to suck blood from. It is an old belief that witches' tongues turn into spider webs, and at night the web reaches into a newborn baby's crib to suck their blood. Many would use iron scissors to cut spider webs before putting their babies down for the night. And then, in the morning, these cut-up webs would be said to have shifted back into human tongues. Women that were single spent a lot of time alone and had jobs like midwife, healer, or curandera, were suspected of being a bruja negra. Brujas are said to remove their legs in order to transform into the guajolote, turkey, or to have the ability to become the flying fireball. If the bruja returns to her house and cannot find her legs, her death is inevitable. Oh, there you go.
So you got that from Spooky Tales. That will be in the show notes as well.
It's funny, you can't say bruja on Friday.
Yeah.
Just on Friday. It's like you can't eat meat on Friday.
Yeah. It's like the same, it's the same types of things. The same myth seems to have detached from its lower half in the Philippines and wanted to party with those tequila rabbits over in Mexico. Salt on the rooftops to ward off the creatures, knives or sharp things pointed downward, same as the Philippines. Fish, goats, turkeys, or bats, but the legs stay home for the night while the witch, the shapeshifter, is off practicing her dark arts. We even have the witch-like ghost orb thingy, the Mananggal, so that sparkly witch orb stuff going. But the detaching lower half is a key feature to this particular fiend, and it too is present in his tale. But wait, there's more. If you act now, you can get 2 Moz Spackles. No.
Yeah. Moz's Monster Spackle, $19.99.
That's all you need. Put it all over the cracks of your shack, and those Aswang will never look back.
See, I told you I'd put some in a bottle and sell it to you.
There you go. We are snake oil salesmen. That's what we are.
We got to make that T-shirt, though. That's going to be great.
But remember this bit from the reading. Many would use iron scissors to cut spider webs before putting their baby down for the night. And then in the morning, these cut-up webs would be said to have shifted back into human tongues. And webs as tongues. There's a very similar account from Ramos's Aswang complex, wherein a woman seeing this tiny thread, back to the Philippines now, woman seeing this tiny thread, like tongue, come down towards her belly, snips it with scissors. And I'm going to show you this picture now. This is from Ramos's book.
They have a picture of it?
I wanted to show you this and then get your reaction. This is the Philippines, not Mexico.
Wow. Yeah, that's cutting a spider web with iron scissors.
Yeah.
Girl in a thatch hut looking room with a very simple dress, little puppy, and some black as night scissors cutting a big long strand coming down from the crack in the ceiling.
And going for her pregnant belly.
And going for under her skirt by her pregnant belly. And she's smiling at it like, I'm going to cut you.
Yep.
Good for her.
But this is the same, my opinion is, the elements of the Aswang complex. This story could fit right in to Ramos's work.
Yeah.
I think it's a variation of the same thing. So did the stories travel, or did the creature themselves make the journey? Did a Mananggal-like creature flatboat or fly on a broom over to Mexico? Is this more global projection theme that going on here, a deeper psychological meaning of the collective unconscious? Or is this simply a case of Spaniards who are in both places bringing these oral traditions elsewhere, like in Chile and Portugal? This is the more likely scenario, but still, it's kind of a wow, you know?
Yeah,
kind of a wow word.
The global culture things, man, it's kind of crazy.
But this is not something I found listed anywhere else in relation to the Mananggal. It is the Mananggal story, not far from where we're actually podcasting.
It is very overlapped.
Well, fairly far, but not.
Well, I mean, regionally, we're in a place that was Mexico for a very long time.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, it's very connected to the vampire stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because I keep kind of tangentially connecting here. So the fact that it has, you know, it did travel the world seemingly a very long time ago, this, we'll call it lore. I mean, it's the voyage of the Demeter, right? It's the vampire story where Dracula crosses the ocean. I mean, it's very much just an older version of Dracula at that point. If it did travel across the ocean and start becoming known in other cultures like that,
yeah, it's a variation of a theme that we keep seeing. But this one very Philippines specific,
right?
And
then all of a sudden, it's in Chile, it's in Mexico, it's in Portugal,
yeah.
Which Portugal is the whole other side of the planet.
And it's a constellation, as the wiki says, in the archipelago of that area, and now we're finding it in all these other areas, is the bottom line. Wow. So for sending me one step beyond Wikipedia and for helping me Velma proper tonight, I'm giving researcher Kathleen Nadeau, Nadeau, and author Laura Davila are dueling Mad Cujo Awards today.
Ooh, 2 Mad Cujo Awards.
Down boy! Down boy!
Did you know that when you pluralize Mad Cujos, it's Mad Cujo? It makes no sense.
Wow. I didn't know that. Either does anything else we do, so I think it's fitting.
And I played the bumper twice, one for each of them, just to be sure.
I didn't hear that.
You will.
So we have a Tagalog highlight. That's one of the groups from the back to the Philippines. So we're going to return to the Philippines and get some Mananggal highlight stories. I found this one in Ramos's Aswang complex. In the 1930s, a delegation of teachers arrived in Lucban, Lucban, where they stayed for a few nights, but soon after their arrival, disturbing tick-tick sounds could be heard echoing through the night, followed by the flapping of membranous wings. You might be thinking tick-belong. We talked about this last week as the ticking. The tick-tick bird might just sing when any type of Aswang enters the area. So some think it's a bird that's warning you. Others think it's the actual creature. So it's more associated with the tick-belong, but other Aswang get this tick-tick thing going on as well.
The tick-tick is a portend either way.
Yes, whether it's the beast or the bird warning.
Okay.
But the next night, a couple area folks take it upon themselves to peek out their windows. And here's this excerpt from Ramos's book that captures what they saw. So basically, it's a convention in town. Strange things are happening during the convention. The second night, some of the locals get up the courage to stick their head out the window, and this is what they saw. And Jeremy's going to read it.
Oh, I'm going to read it. Okay. The next night, some brave folks peeped their heads out of their window when they heard the sound of wings. They were horrified when they saw a flock of black-winged creatures flying in the dark of the night. The creatures had human heads, but half of their bodies from the waist down were missing. The people presumed that what they saw were Mananggal. The following morning, the people of Lukban, who had charge of feeding the delegates, observed them closely. They noticed that some of the delegates refused to eat spicy dishes and were fond of dinuguan, which is meat cooked with blood, and iniha na lamang loob, which is roasted internal organs. They also noticed these delegates had deep armpits and could not look directly into the other people's eyes. From that night, the seminar ended, and Lukban populace hung spices such as garlic and pepper outside of windows. They placed crosses on top of their roofs. So it's just spicy stuff, huh?
Yeah, well, that goes back to best defense last week. Most spices do kill these things. And, that's, but to see a flock of half creatures, bats, women, flying around. Half-bodied.
With their entrails hanging out.
Yeah. A flock of them, a murder, or whatever a flock of Manananggal would be.
Yeah.
But if anyone, especially multiple people
I believe
witnesses,
it would be called a terror.
There you go.
A terror of Mananggal.
I like it. I'm with you on that one. But this is probably the spookiest personal account thing. If you have to see one thing going on, I think that has to rank up there. Half woman. I don't know. Ugh.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
There are some things we talk about that I actually kind of want to see. I do not want to see that.
And I would hate to cater a conference like that anyway. It
Right.
does give you some ideas for your Wolfman Puck segment coming up, right? Kind of gets the old juices flowing a little bit there.
Imagine being the cleaning service for the resort where that conference was held.
It's not okay. Like they're eating, a lot of the stuff they're eating is like enticing these things to come in and feed, really. And this second highlight story, we have a fairly recent, February 10th, 2023. I'd say that's fairly recent. 2 girls who saw a Mananggal in Talisay who undergo stress debriefing. So this happened. These women, this was in the news from this area back in the Philippines. And Jeremy, if you would read this account.
Can I just ask, what is a stress debriefing?
Well, I mean, obviously they were just, they were freaked out, so they probably had a counselor there. They probably
so just tell them their
the
story to a
accounts,
professional kind.
and then somebody probably had to talk them down a little bit because they were worked up. So they got a counselor, a psychologist involved.
Okay.
Like sometimes when our episodes don't go well, it's like that intervention we do.
Like today.
Yeah. Call the social worker, Jeremy. What do we do in these situations?
Run. I run.
You flap away and separate.
I grow my ears and flap away, leaving my body behind. Because
Okay.
all I really need is my brain.
Yeah. I would leave that behind as well.
I'll find a new one.
There you go.
Anywho, all right. The 2 young girls who allegedly saw a mythical creature called Mananggal in Talisay City will undergo a stress debriefing. This was disclosed by Mayor Gerald Anthony Samsam Guyas on Friday, February 10th. Guyas said the city social welfare and development will undertake the debriefing and counseling after distributing relief packs to the almost 100 families who were affected by the fire that struck Barangay San Roque on Monday night, February 6th. Guyas advised the Talasenans to keep praying and be vigilant not only against evil creatures but also criminal elements. The Talisay City Police, meanwhile, urged the people to maintain their composure amid stories circulating in public about the Mananggal who appeared in front of the two young girls around 8 p.m. Tuesday, Friday the 7th, in Sitio Manga, Barangay Dumlog. They also asked the people not to spread false information that could create public anxiety. Talisay City Police Chief Lieutenant Colonel Randy Cabales said the people in Sitio Manga began to panic after the two children went home terrified and reported that they saw the mythical creature on top of their neighbor's roof. Cabales said that their investigation is still ongoing and that they have not yet obtained any evidence regarding the so-called Mananggal.
And that's from the Sun Star, and it's in the show notes. That is a real newspaper from the Philippines.
Am I seeing it right that the place's name, Sitio Manga, that manga is
has a
like
manga
just
in
it looks like a shortened
Correct.
version of Mananggal.
Yeah, it's like the close to the daughter's name of Rangda. So
Yeah.
you got and you got a fire the day before, and then which drove this
Yep.
creature out, perhaps, or
Yeah, I was wondering about the fire too.
they don't like
yeah.
fire. That's one of the best defense things. They also say quote unquote so-called Mananggal, but then they do make an announcement about monstrous creatures and criminal elements. It's official report about beware of both.
Well, I guess somebody was on the roof,
Somebody was on the roof,
so it's either a criminal or a monster. So
Yeah.
do what you can against both.
Yep. Talisay looks to be just south of Cebu City in one of those larger islands of the Philippines, somewhere in the middle of the archipelago. Talisay is also not far from a place called Crocolandia, by the way. I'm not kidding. I just looked that up to see where it was. Crocolandia. Wear Crocs or risk future regret.
Oh my goodness.
Best defense, how to defeat it. We're going to switch gears now a little bit to best defense. Kind of an addendum to last week's Aswang best defense. Bit of a recap. Many things from the kitchen can thwart an Aswang. To fight it, most people use sharpened bolos, bamboo stalks that are sharpened, or a steel knife, and they go for the back or the heart. Remember, according to that Eagle song, steely knives don't always work. Sometimes
They just can't kill the beast.
Yeah, you can wound it, but you can't kill the beast. Most spices seem to work, sour or spicy, especially garlic, vinegar, salt, urine, lemon, or uncooked rice. They abhor loud noises, light, or fire, which the fire drove that one out, apparently. So another best defense might be to invite them to a Metallica concert. Sounds like a lot of that would be going on at a Metallica concert. Or as we learned last week, instead of an owl statue, try a python or a crocodile statue on the roof. That's the other kind of things that will, they had a cross was used in a recent example. That's the Christianization version. But in the old days, a python or a crocodile were the guardians that would send these things away. They don't like ashes either, or crustaceans, or the tail of a stingray. So try fish. So if you suspect your date might be a Mananggal or some other Aswang, tell her you're going to Olive Garden for the breadsticks and then pull across the parking lot right up to the Red Lobster just to see her reaction. Or maybe check her tan lines because they're probably pretty funky.
I was just going to throw Tabasco in her face and see what happens.
There you go. But basically, there's other things besides that stuff I made up. Lower half, you can basically, if you douse it and if you burn it, if you drag it out into the sun, we already talked about salt, garlic, vinegar, which is also going to be good for your Wolfman Puck entree. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I was already thinking about Wolfman Puck and how the spiciness is good against them.
But we talked about this, so they can't reattach in the morning if you hide it or you burn the body in the sunlight or you douse it in these things that they don't like. It can't reattach. Best defense, just drag the lower half into the sunlight at dawn. I think that'll work. You have been itching that you have a best defense. So what might that be?
Well, yeah, because I thought of it earlier and didn't even realize it. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to bring a beholder and play matchmaker because they're going to love each other. It's going to be love at first sight, especially with all the eyes on the beholder. Mm-hmm. And I am an ordained minister, so I'm going to get them married up right there, and they're going to fly away, and they're just off into paradise, and they'll be seen again, because when a monster's happy, it doesn't attack anything anymore.
Wow, you're going to kill it with kindness.
I am going to kill the monster with love.
Yeah, interesting. I like it.
And it's not even going to die. It's just not going to be a monster anymore. It's going to be a transition, not a death.
Yep. So I'm bringing Chuck Norris because I didn't think of one for this. So I'm just going to bring Chuck Norris. He's the go-to.
Just bring your spice rack, dude. That's all you really need.
Just throw. Yep.
I'm just going
to turn the rack. No.
I'm just going to keep a bottle of Tabasco in my pocket, and if a flying head dragging entrails comes at me, I'm just going to spray some Tabasco in its eyes.
There you go. That's why they hate fire, because it'll probably blow up,
Yeah. Well, because if you ever drag your intestines through a fire,
yeah, not a good idea.
Probably not fun.
It's probably related to why they don't like that.
Yeah.
But switching the gears to some common theories from the Jungian side or depth psychology end of it. It's interesting, the separating from your sexual organs. Remember the Srei Ap, another head with a dangling alimentary canal, like several we found floating about. It gets very Ouroboros-y. It was what it reminded me of, because you've got the whole alimentary canal.
Snake, yeah.
No, it's
Ouroboros is the snake swallowing its tail.
Right.
There you go.
So you've basically got the whole alimentary canal thing. So that's what I went with it. So here's Eric Neumann on the Ouroboros, the womb undifferentiated, if you will, and the terrible mother. The Ouroboros appears as the round container, the maternal womb, but also as the union of masculine and feminine opposites, the world parents joined in perpetual cohabitation, ... The womb of the earth clamors for fertilization, and blood sacrifices and corpses are the food she likes best. This is the terrible aspect, the deadly side of the earth's character. So it's got that kind of terrible mother Ouroboros-y thing, undifferentiated.
Well, I mean, the earth eats the dead,
on.
though. The earth has to eat the dead. We're in a closed biocycle. It needs everything back when you're done with it.
I think this is an Ouroboros-y dimension, and that's what we're trying to break out of.
I see what you're saying.
Exactly.
I see what you're saying.
But this echoes of so many creatures from Philippine folklore, and not that dissimilar from the Hindu counterparts as well. The Mananggal in particular is a perfect rendition of this terrible and monstrous Earth Mother, or Tiamat, or Lilith, immediately post being rent apart from the Sky Father. The one, from tonight is literally torn apart and is still oozing her innards as this happens. Another thought, the Mananggal are often light-complexioned. Many of the monsters from Philippine folklore are either darker than the natives, demons and giants, or they're lighter, elves, witches, Mananggal. Could harken back to a fear of outgroup thing, darker or lighter than thee thing, just a thought. And, of course, I had the shamanic shapeshift complex a little bit. In honor of the Philippines, I refer to my usual shamanic shapeshift complex as, the Babylonian Aswang complex, because that's one of the main shamanic groups. But my own flavor of choice is, the shamanistic energies behind shapeshifters. The interesting piece to this is how most shaman are women in this region, so of course we find more female monsters. The monsters here, like everywhere, seem inexplicably tied into shamanic energies, practices, and rituals. Same dynamic in the Philippines. You become ill, find a witch doctor or a Babylonian or Catalonians to combat the sickness and or find the fiend responsible. Shamans of the regions can even reverse spells, so things they inflict on the victim only affect the spellcaster. We have an example of that coming up. Most importantly, Aswang is a witch and Aswang is a monster, as we said last week. Said. Again, the Tikbalang, most other Aswang are also known for making people sick, giving you the fever, the illness. I keep asking the question, does this parallel the shamanic fits? Is this another initiation where we only hear about the people who fail, or is this the other end of the hermetic pole of opposites, the bad shaman? Dr. Maximus Ramos breaks down the shamans and the sisters thusly.
Strictly speaking, the sorcerer or wizard and the witch differ from each other. The former does his work for a fee, whereas the witch does hers voluntarily or involuntarily as a means of redress. The sorcerer thus resembles the shaman and medicine man, whose position is one of trust and looked up to in many cultures, including the Philippines, while the witch is not only despised but feared, but often set upon by the people. Screw the patriarchy, man. I'm tired of that nonsense.
Rampant Aswangery, that's what I call it.
Rampant Aswangery.
Yeah. That's from Creatures of Philippine Lower Mythology from Dr. Maximus Ramos.
Seriously, though, that's a male-female thing, right?
Well,
they're just saying the guys are okay to be that powerful, but the women aren't.
We will touch on that tonight.
Okay, makes me mad. Bring back the matriarchy, man.
There you go. We're in agreement on that as well. Shamans, like elsewhere, are chosen by their Aikla totems, or what we call them yeks, but the regionally appropriate to the Babayans and the Philippines is Abyan. That's their yek, Abyan. I had to look for that word to find if they had kind of a, usually helper spirit or ancestral. It seems to be more ancestral if they're good and more totemy if they're negative. I don't know if I'm right on that. This is just my interpretation of what I've read. But in the shamanic parts, it's not uncommon for the Anito, the ancestral spirit, to possess a shaman during a ritual or become the shaman's helper spirit. Areas seem heavier, like I said, on the ancestral spirit helper side than animal totem side. I don't know. But here's Richard Lieben's 1967 work that drives this point home about this. I'm going to have one of your last readings.
Can I ask a question first real quick?
No.
Is Abyan a word for someone who lives in the abyss?
Because abyss is part of the etymology.
Abyan, right?
Yeah. Ooh, abyss dweller.
An Abian lives in the abyss.
I like it. I have to I guess old business to etymology.
That's going to come into the one theory I have on this that you're not going to say because it came into my brain. It's all ahuli.
Yeah, I don't doubt that part.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, let me read this for everybody. Lieben discusses 6 different kinds of sorcery, each conducted by a different label of sorcerer. The barang is the most common type of sorcery practiced among the Cebuano. This method uses insects or animals sent by the sorcerer into the victim's body for the purpose of causing the individual pain. ... There are 2 kinds of witches that reside in the Cebuano area. The Aswang, or the Ongo, and the Buyagan, or the Usakan. The previous are known as the most fearsome witches and can transform into a special witch guise, such as an animal. These witches also keep special animals, which they train to do their bidding. The latter inflicts curses upon his victims through words which can be either spoken or unspoken. Liban then tries to determine the differences between sorcerers and witches and states that the distinctions are not always apparent or absolute.
That from Cebuano Sorcery, Malign Magic in the Philippines, Richard Lieben, 1967. I'll have that in the show notes. But the usual ambiguity, Jeremy, which it's tough to separate these things, but he does kind of allude that witches are more associated with the animal familiars.
Right.
It does seem like. But they also have these insects or animals sent by the sorcerer into the victim's body. It sounds like the arrows that they shoot into you sometimes.
Well, the one thing they're getting right about the witchcraft is it is inherently natural. It's with nature. And you have that connection with all the other creatures and whatnot.
But the higher mythologies seem to be connected to the ancestral spirits. In this case, there seems to be a clear divide. Other areas, it's tough to tell because the shaman is so ambiguous. He does good and bad depending on what's needed for the community.
Right.
But this one seems to be a little bit more line in the sand that, and I could be wrong on this, but the animals seem to be more associated as the totem of the witches, and the ancestral spirits seem to be more associated with the priests and the diviners and the higher mythology kind of pieces. So I don't know. I could be wrong on this one, but that's what I brought away from it.
It's all about thinking about it in different angles. Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Yep. So we'll see. But there does echo of the European witch in there, too. The word totemism or animism is absent in much of Ramos's work, but he does mention animal relations in his appendix questionnaire regarding traits and function of lower mythology. So at the end, he has a question about that to some of the folks he interviewed. I don't know what else he went on to do with that. But did the Spanish change the dynamic? Very likely. If beings of power are wronged or under attack from colonizers and outsiders, well, Lieben just said it's not absolute. It's kind of gray goose. Yeah. But basically...
It's a little beefeater to me.
It's a little beefeater. But basically, striking a balance, is kind of the key again. But what's the difference between a bunny conjured by the Black Rabbit from Watership Down and those tequila rabbits from Mayan folklore? About a 2.0 blood alcohol.
I was going to say probably their level of drunkenness.
Yes. I went specifically for BAL. However, you do get the feeling, just a feeling, these powerful shamanic women were driven out. So they themselves became the monsters, either by choice or by colonizers' revisionist history. This, too, is a theme everywhere, whether the leopard men of Sierra Leone or the skin
Walker
of the southwestern U.S. or the Kainama of South America or the Aswang women of the Philippines. Either way, such occupations saw everything out of Wak Wak, which was another Aswang, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that one. That's a great name. I won't forget that one.
Wak Wak. I think Fozzie Bear named that one.
Waka Waka.
But basic Filipino shamanism 101, the Philippines host endless shamans from healers to diviners to priests. Here's kind of the highlight reel. We'll get through it. Tagalogs are a big group, and they have Catalonian female shaman, or the Bayog or Bayoguin male shaman trans counterparts. They have that transgender version. They have the Albolero and the Mangoloop. These are diviners who work their magic through a ritual called loop. This is another, again, ritual to fight off the Aswang. The back road out to Winslow is also called loop, I believe.
Yep. It's spelled funny, though.
Yeah. The Albolero might diagnose a problem, but then calls the Mangaloop to perform the Aswang dispelling ritual. Kind of a general practitioner versus a specialist kind of thing. The more herbalist or medicine men type healers are often called Albolero, because it's a Spanish term that subsumed many of the actual local names for these practitioners. Another big group is the Bikkel, we've talked about today, in the last 2 episodes, who call their shaman Balayans, Balyanas, who exercise anyone suffering from Aswang illness through a ritual called the Hidhid. Asog is the male trans group for that group as well. Bikkel shaman used the Palwal ritual to appease the Agoi, which we talked about, the merfolk, the local landscape spirits as well, or elf class. So I guess the Agoi is elf class. I'll have to check that.
Okay. Yeah, they all mix together on you.
They all mix together on me. As for the Vicious group, they break down into healer, midwives, herbalists, and diviners. We see more priest classes show up with the more Christianized groups. Panay and Vicious have practitioners called Ma'aram, which means knowledge. I thought that was cool. The Bohol Vicious have the Diwatero, who are the area ghostbusters called upon to combat the Buyag and other supernatural spirits. Who are you going to call? Buyag Busters.
Booyagas.
Buyag Busters.
Booyag Busters.
But it's more like a sequel with all...
I got it. Booyag Busters.
There you go.
I got it.
The Sama Bajau groups have shamans known as the Kalamat. The Muslim brand of these practitioners are known as the Wali Jinn, literally custodians of the jinn. Their shamans are called custodians of the jinn.
Wow.
That says it all.
It really does.
It says actually what they're doing. We finally have
someone who named them.
Yeah, they named it really correctly.
Wow.
So I like that.
Wow.
I got most of that from the many names of Philippine shamans and healers, the Aswang Project. I will have that in the show notes, so most of that section I gleaned from them. I could go on. I am not going to. Most of the above insights, though, I really appreciate the Aswang Project. It was helpful in this project as well. They were a solid resource. I did come across some other basic shamanic themes when reviewing some Philippine folklore as well, predominantly the cave that the hero descends into and emerges with gifts of knowledge. And I found them in 2 Tingwin tales, and that was from M.C. Cole again, Philippine Folk Tales, Tree with the Agate Beads, and the Mag Sawi. Those were 2 tales that seemed pretty shamanic to me. There is some overlap here again between shaman and monsters, no surprise. Neither the Anito or the Aswang much care for spices, it seems. Is it just the malevolent brands of ancestral or guardian spirits? I'm not sure. Of course, all the etymological similarities, I'm not going to say it again. But there's also a clear way to counter revenge attacks via shamanic boomerang effect. Under certain circumstances, I mentioned this, under certain circumstances of an Aswang possession, one can inflict injury on the victim and it bounces to the offending entity, with the help, of course, of the local shaman. Dr. Ramos tells a story wherein an old man wanders out of the crowd at a young woman's funeral. She apparently had many suitors, but she was somehow killed. This old man goes up to her and says, "She's not dead, bring her home," which I think is amazing.
Whoa.
There he conducts a ritual, pours boiling water on the dead girl. She awakens with a start. We find the next day one of the suitors has died from a scalding. So, and that story is from Ramos's Lower Mythologies. And that's a theme.
That sounds really dangerous, though. Like, if you don't really know what you're doing.
Well, she was dead. I mean, what's the worst that's
I guess that's
happen?
true. If she's already dead, who cares?
But I think the real takeaway from the story is the Klingons are wrong. It's, revenge is not a dish best served cold. It's best served very hot in the face.
Hot.
Yeah.
Scalding hot.
So, Klingons wrong on this one.
And the guy ends up scalded so they know who it was, too.
Correct. It's just like the same thing. You're injured in the astral and you find it. You're injured as a shapeshifter. You have that same wound the next day, the old Wolfman trope.
Wow.
So there's been an association between the Babylonian and the Aswangs. Those are the shaman that haunt the night. You can almost say they're a Babylonian Aswang complex, which is what I call this thing.
There you go.
I already said that. Shamans are forever entwined with the regional monsters. Is it all just Spanish propaganda? As some researchers attest, Menez 1996 points to reversing the medicinal herbs of the healer to the foul smells and tastes of the Aswang. The Spanish tried to pin as many negative traits and values on these monsters to turn the people away from their own healers. So they were put into one bucket. So the shaman and the Aswang were put into one bucket and sent packing. So they turned them away from their healers as usual. The good, the bad, and the ugly, the monsters and the healers.
Yeah.
And they probably didn't set up too many medical facilities for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, yeah.
Thanks, gang,
Huh.
I would say that certainly part of the story is what happened there, just like everywhere else we've kind of looked at.
This whole bucket thing kind of bothers me because it needs to be like 4-dimensional buckets that overlap in 3-dimensional space to make a hyper-dimensional Venn diagram. It's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah. If you read Narby, some of that comes back in as far as the 3-dimensional images and symbolism that's projected by DNA and flashes.
Yeah.
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 Back to that good stuff. And back to that study, we said Kathleen Nadeau, Nadeau, compares Balinese, Philippine, and Hindu folklore and that of European. While European witch tales tend to diminish women's powers and voice by according them a subservient role to that of men, transposing them into sexual objects for men's pleasure and downgrading women as hags when they grow old, this is not the case in Southeast Asian witch lore. Southeast Asian witches seem to represent the spirits when unbound. So this is Kathleen Nadeau, but we're talking about bound, unbound. These spirits, the women seem to be unbound, which seems to be a threat, which is part of the reason they had to be so demonized in this area.
Sure.
Ontological theory, this from Juan R. Francisco, who writes the foreword for Ramos's Aswang complex, that there's a constant struggle between the people, the shaman, and the monsters to strike balance, which is, quote, a continuous process that permeates many aspects of their everyday lives, requires the intercession of a special person in the community who acts as the medium of communication between them. Something between the spirits, something between the people.
That's the shaman.
Something between the monsters, something between the people.
We've established that in many episodes, that
Yes.
the shaman is the go-between between the human
Yes.
realm and the spirit realm, like that.
We find it again. But back to that Mert study for a moment. Quick update. If you recall, I kind of suspected that the bush being intermediaries mentioned in the Mert study were tiny, hairy creature teachers. Do you remember that? I was thinking like Banja Akri of the Himalayas, or
It was your Pukwudgie moment of the week.
yeah, but there was nothing in that 300-page study I found that really explained the Sawaso, these bush beings. But in the work, in Samantha Hearn's work, I found another Mert study that says exactly that. The Sawasi, or bush beings, are in fact small shamanic creature teachers. Surprise emoji face. There's even more weirdness on that front. But you'll have to wait for the season recap because I'm going to do it in the annual update. But there's more on that. But I'm right, and Sharon Mertz might be on board to some degree.
That'll be
to a large degree.
That'll be episode 51.
Correct. So, and that also brings us to our Ahu Guano files.
Ooh, Ahu Guano, theory of the week. Oh no, here it comes! Quick, to the batshit signal!
The Filipino folks have two main problems. Number one, they have ghouls going after the freshly deceased. And two, these vampire witchy viscera suckers going after the living while they sleep. These two ontological realities cause significant fear and wreak havoc on the people's lives, which is part of our side trail, by the way. And vigils on guard duty. You know, you have to go on guard duty when someone dies so they don't take your body of your loved one and eat it. But we already covered on the last episode how merfolk can be won over and wooed with a little chicken and coconut shell served on the beach. Do you remember that? So I say, make that offering and then build a water park under your house and invite your new friends. The fish smell will drive off many of these fiends. They don't like fishy smells. And the rest will have to contend with this newfound guardian mer monster buddy of yours. It's kind of win-win, and it's better than fire. It'll put out any fires.
Yeah.
Why not go specific and seek out Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy? I guess that's my best defense. I did come up with the best defense dream team.
I've always thought that most monsters we should be making friends with.
Yeah. The other ants I already alluded to last time. Spackle. Cover the cracks of those shacks with Maz's Aswang spackle hack.
Yeah, it gives you a good reason to seal up your house, doesn't it?
Yeah. I want to patent that brand. And if you put a fishy smell baked right into it, or lemon or urine or garlic.
Maz's Monster Crackle Spackle.
Yeah. I got a lot of different. It could be like doTERRA oil. Do you have an ahu guano theory of the week?
I do. The only theory I have is very...
And now Sir Richard Scullymuggle, skeptic. No. Moving on.
I find them very Lovecraftian. I feel like they are scouts for the Cthulhu. Instead of tentacles, they're dragging their entrails. And they're just flying around checking out territory for the masters that are coming up from where? The Abyss. The Rabians. In our plane of existence. Scouting territory.
Totem Cthulhus.
For those from the Abyss.
Dang.
Yeah, there you go. They're like the Cthulhu's version of Mothman. Yeah. They're portending the end.
Yeah, the bridge is about to collapse.
Yeah. Yep. Except in this case, the bridge is society and civilization.
Yes.
And maybe possibly the entire human race.
Nice.
And those who survive can look forward to 10,000 years of darkness and pain.
That's pretty uplifting, you know. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
No, now you know I went, Sir Richard Scullymuggle, Skeptic's Review, instead of letting you speak.
I should have gone with that. I should have just gone with that.
Sir Richard Scullymuggle, Skeptic's Review.
You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Well, there is some folks that seem to have some answers they've come up with. Philippine flying lemurs, the kagwang, are believed to be mistaken at times for some of these flying aswang. Certainly that Rocky the Flying Squirrel one could be a kagwang.
Yeah.
That's a Scullymuggle calling Bullwinkle. That's a different Rocky Raccoon back in his room. But Scullymuggles also posit the aswang might be giant bats like the flying fox or giant seabirds. Similarly, the sounds of the aswang make are some native birds like the tick-tick, for example, the wak-wak.
Wak-wak.
Exactly. Actually, there's a great YouTube series on the subject, by the way, the Aswang Project. They posit that the wak-wak is a beetle native to the region because it makes a similar wak-wak sound, and I think they're onto something. If you watch it, I think they might have Scullymuggled that sound.
Okay.
Of course, it could just be the portent.
They're
it's
like
not the monster. It's just when the beetle's warning you.
They're like a really weird cricket.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's kind of cool, though.
But again, it
that's
might not,
weird.
But it might not be the monster. It may be just the warning. That's we never established that.
Right. Might just be warning you that they're there.
And of course, the Mananggal, they're going to go will-o-wisp swamp gas because it's got that sparkly, fiery thing going. They're cool. Oh, I found a good one, though. Dr. Emily Zarka from Monstrum on her Mananggal YouTube episode. She talks about the balut is a fertilized egg that people still eat because I guess they're hungry. But the eating of the embryo part is somewhat horrifying to many. So she posits how the origin of the Mananggal ritual might be linked to the somewhat sickening food source, back to the black chick that they eat to become a Mananggal. Right. It's an interesting theory. And this one is a very likely part of the Capiz story. We alluded that there was a Scullymuggle component to why everyone in Capiz might be an Aswang. There's a disease called X-linked dystonia Parkinsonianism, XDP, which is very prominent in Capiz, so a lot of people have this. And it causes, get this, a twisted tongue effect that creates excessive stringy saliva. So when people went to visit the place, they're like, everybody here is an Aswang, you know? It's like when you give me that really strong stuff from the dispensary.
Yeah, that's good.
But these mimic the Aswang and likely contributed to the whole notorious reputation, Pete.
That's pretty wild. So those thin strand, the spider webby things, is actually just kind of drool caused by the Parkinson's related sort of disease.
Potentially. Yeah.
Wow.
And our Mad Cujo winner from EP1, Dr. Maximus Ramos, for writing those two of those primary sources from both of these episodes, really. This is he's actually a Scully Muggle. So I have to say, this is him.
And he won a Mad Cujo's, huh? Good for him.
Yeah, it's tougher to do. It's a steeper hill for us.
Yeah. It's hard for a skeptic to win one of those.
But this is from his lower mythologies. Such incidents give currency and persistent to these beliefs, and the line must be drawn between what I fancy and what is fact. While the beliefs in these creatures can be useful in embodying the content of education and can serve as an internalized brake on conduct, these same beliefs must not be allowed to carry over in the workaday world of objective reality. Despite his Scully Muggle sensibilities.
So it's like, yeah, okay, there's other layers to reality that we know about, but let's not pay attention to those while we work.
Yeah, we have stuff to do.
I don't like that mentality at all.
Well, Scully Muggles, like I said, we're going to talk about this in the side trail. He does a wonderful job balancing the Volkadanken and the Element Gedanken back to Adolf Bastian. The spirit and the ideals and the mythology is very rich in the Philippines and is very important. And he does a wonderful job near the end of his book explaining why this is important to all the folks there. But he wants to draw the line that please learn to swim. Don't be afraid of the merfolk, because he kind of says there's a lot of people doing very unhealthy things, or not going to or going to healers when they should go to doctors, or we'll talk about that in the side trail. But basically, he does walk a nice balance with that. But yes, as we find out more and more, and as we go to season 2 and season 3 of this project, this Aswang project, we're going to find more people that believe something more is going on in these woods. What that is, we're going to get to the heart of. I'm not sure, but we're definitely following the trail of dripping entrails, Jeremy.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What else might the skeptics be saying? One thesis on the subject proposes the legend arose as a direct result of colonization and sexuality. I said we would get to this. The gender-bashing theme does dominate some of the studies, like this one. It's your final reading. It's a quickie. And we're going to move on.
You going to make me read something that makes me mad again?
Yes, on purpose.
He loves doing that to me, everybody.
Yeah. This is from Performing the Body in Filipino Narratives, the Mananggal Viscera Sucker in Colonial Literature, in the show notes.
The profound transformation whereby the belief in the cannibalistic feature of the viscera sucker is not only an inversion by the Spanish friars to discredit the Babaylin of her crucial role in Filipino society, but as also arising from a sense of women's sexual and maternal agency surrounding their bodies. This paper seeks to problematize traditional readings and to rethink traditional attitudes to the body. It examines how and why female transgressive desire finds its ideal expression through the Mananggal in Filipino literature. ... This reflective transformation is entangled in the complex and shifting relationships between the body and female sexuality, and between erotic desire and power that came to be expressed in the period.
There's a lot of these theories that come up, and we're going to discuss them a little bit as people trying to explain what's going on and why people might be seeing the things they do and why. And again, it's the psychological elements. We tend to go into the deeper psychological elements than some of these. I want to mention these because I think they're important, but I think we're going to steer away mostly towards something really. We want to go into the abyss that you're talking about, the Abian.
Yeah.
We really want to find out what's going on. And some of the darker projections we're talking about. But I think we have to mention some of these other theories and what other folks are saying about it, because they are relevant to some of the themes that we're seeing, and they may explain some of what's going on, certainly.
Sure.
Scully Mulder Believability Scale. They feel your methods, your theories are
spooky. Do you think I'm spooky?
Wait, why am I Scully? Pretty much same as the other shapeshifters. I think this segment kind of self-segmented and flew off with its own hands.
Yeah. We're going to wind that one down as we go here.
Or we're going to upgrade or do away with
the funeral is planned.
Yeah, and we'll keep vigil so they don't steal the body.
It's just,
if they steal the body, they devour it and eat the soul. Wolfman Puck's. Oh, wait.
Wolfman Puck's Scripted Culinary Corner.
Your entree, sir. Smells good.
Who's first on this one?
What are we just having one of those heads?
Well, I'll go first, and I guess you'll find out.
Get a head with the entrails hanging out. Oh yeah, go ahead first, and I'll see what the basket item is.
I'll go head first.
Head first, and then I'll make something up on the spot and whoop your ass.
There you go. I think the Mananggal eats enough liver and intestines that I could pull off a really nice Mananggal blood sausage, which works on a lot of levels. Well, if you don't really think about it. This will be served with Romulan ale, smuggled over the neutral zone. Why? 2 reasons. 1, it's very potent, and you'll need that to block out the entree you're ingesting. 2, the Mananggal, like the Enterprise, in grave peril, can separate the saucer section from the star drive section. In The Next Generation, Jodie LaForge was forced to do it in the episode Arsenal of Freedom when encountering the Q entity. Did it ever happen in the original series, though, Jeremy?
I don't think in the show, but in the movies, right?
But do you think it? This is another trick question. Again, whatever you said, you're going to be wrong. But
thanks, Maz. I'm going to stop taking your quizzes.
But the technology existed because in the episode The Apple, when Vol has gripped the ship, that dragon cave fire god thing, and Kirk orders Scotty to separate the saucer section and leave orbit if all else fails. So the capability was there in the late 60s.
Yep.
Way ahead of their time. Basically.
Way ahead.
Yep. There you go. Well, what did you come up with? Well, I was busy being brilliant.
You did a blood sausage. I was going to make haggis. It's like the same
thing.
All right. So since you stole my whole haggis thing pretty much, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn it around on you, Moz. And instead of eating or serving the Mananggal, I'm going to feed the Mananggal. I'm going to make a giant cauldron of slow smoked, nice and bland, no spices, poo stew.
Poo stew.
Poo stew. For the Mananggal. And I'm going to serve it with a very special beer, Mortalis Beholder Yogurt Parfait Sour Ale.
Why?
Because it's extremely expensive and sounds like it tastes horrible, which means the Mananggal will probably love it.
Wow.
And it sounds like it might have a strong enough flavor to cut through the poo stew.
Wow. Okay.
And it's got Beholder on it.
Oh, I see.
Because I'm going to bring.
Oh, you dive back to the Beholder.
I'm going to bring it's Beholder.
Yeah.
Yogurt Parfait.
Nice.
Mortalis Beholder Yogurt Parfait. It's got a Beholder on the label. And I'm going to bring beholders to the dinner with the Mananggals.
And they're going to die.
And by the end of the night, they're all going to be paired up. And we're going to kill the hate with love.
There you go. Kill them with kindness. Back to that. You did bring it full circle. I'll give you partial credit. Very Ouroboros-y of you.
Yep.
Yeah. Well done.
So I won, right? Because I killed hate with love.
I think we'll leave people judge that. I was pretty happy with my saucer section, Star Drive, Star Trek thing. So maybe it's a draw.
Send us an email at monsterlordtour@gmail.com.
Let us know who's better or dumber.
Let us know who won that one, because we'll fight endlessly over that, and we don't have time.
Yep. That's my wrap. Oh, I do have I do have one thing.
Okay.
I'd like to end with a creepy quote.
Oh, please.
Just basically scare you a little bit more.
Can you do it in Klingon?
No, because it's been a German theme. I had to do a German.
Oh,
it's not Der fliegende Scheißkopf. It's very different from that. Wo verstehen der Bose in der Herz auf Mann? Der fliegende Scheißkopf verstehen. Oh, it does have a fliegende Scheißkopf in it. Let me do that again.
Can you translate that?
No.
Do it again.
Wo verstehen der Bose in der Herz auf Mann? Der fliegende Scheißkopf verstehen.
I'm so frightened right now. What did you just say?
No, I'm not going to tell you. No, it says, who knows the evil that lurks in the hearts of men? It's usually the shadow. It's actually the fliegende Scheißkopf. Knows the evil.
The flying shitheads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we get a hockey team, I think
we got our logo.
Yeah, that's true.
And on that note, let's get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for listening, coming along with the Monster Lore Tour as we roll down this road from hate to love that I just took us one step farther down, which is why I won. Moz. If you haven't yet, please hit those happy fun buttons before you go. The like and subscribe, maybe share with some friends. If you have a minute to rate and review the episode, we'd love to get some feedback. Tell us if we're great. Tell us if we suck. We like to hear it all. We have one more deep dive left for season 1. This is an exciting time for Monster Lore Tour. So we will see you next week with that. It's my first alien abduction, full-on alien abduction episode. It's one of the craziest ones you'll ever hear.
Awesome.
So that's something to look forward to. Until then, have a good one, listener. Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
Don't be calling me that.
You're a barangay dumlog.
Yes. No, we said I'm a
Fliegende Scheißkopf!